as soon as Caitlin gets back up here, I'll gavel us in.
Here's where I'm at on city views if y'all want to figure it out. I don't give a shit.
Good enough.
Just if you,
Can you say that left row to the people in the back?
I'll say I don't care anymore. And then I'll happily resign from the planning board. 'Cause I'll get kicked out.
You ready?
Ready, Freddie?
All right.
Let's do it.
Good evening. At this time, we'll call to order the November 6th meeting of the New Hanover County Planning Board. I'd like to welcome everyone in the audience here as well as at home. If I could take an opportunity before we get started to just remind everybody who's here tonight to please silence or turn off all your mobile devices. If you plan on speaking tonight, please make sure that you've signed in. These meetings are closed captioned for public broadcast. So please make sure when you come up to the podium that you speak very clearly and loudly into the microphone so that everyone can understand you both here in the audience as well as those folks at home. At this time, if everybody would please rise for the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance. Just to correct the record, today is actually the 7th of November and not the 6th. So the meeting is actually the November 7th meeting of the New Hanover County Planning Board. I apologize for that.
Fire.
Yeah, that's right. The public hearing item from tonight's meeting will go forward to the County Commissioners meeting tentatively scheduled for Monday, December 2nd, 2024. This meeting will begin at approximately 4 p.m. and it will be held here at the New Hanover County Historic Courthouse. The Planning Board representative scheduled for that meeting is Mr. Cameron Moore. The Planning Board representative for the Monday, November 18th, 2024 meeting is Hanson Matthews. In accordance with the New Hanover County Board of Commissioners resolution adopting a code of ethics adopted on January 4th, 2016, it is the duty of all county boards and committees to respect and abide by the New Hanover County Code of Ethics and the performance of their duties. More specifically, all planning board members should, number 1, obey all applicable laws. Number 2, uphold the integrity and independence of the board. Number 3, avoid impropriety. Number 4, faithfully perform the duties of the office. And number 5, conduct the affairs of the board in an open and public manner. It is further the duty of every board member to avoid conflicts of interest as defined in North Carolina General Statutes, Chapter 160D, Section 109. Does any member have any known conflict of interest with respect to any of the matters coming before the board this evening? And if so, please identify the conflict and refrain from any undue participation in the particular matter involved. The first item on tonight's agenda is a public hearing. The format for tonight's public hearing is that each side has a total of 20 minutes, 15 minutes for presentations and 5 minutes for rebuttal. As a reminder, this board is only an advisory board. The Board of Commissioners makes the final decision on any of the requests being considered tonight, but public comment tonight can impact our recommendation and what may ultimately be presented to the commissioners. Moving into our public hearing, item number 1 is a rezoning request Z24-21, request by Cindy Wolf with Design Solutions as applicant on behalf of Catherine Scanlon, Stephen and Catherine Tiley, and Raymond and Kelly Struble, property owners to rezone approximately 0.28 acres located at 1040 and 1050 South Seabreeze Road from the B2 Regional Business District to a general use R5 Residential Moderate High Density District, and to rezone approximately 0.10 acres located at 1054, 1056, and 1068 South Seabreeze Road from B2 to a general use R15 residential district. Before we get started tonight, I do want to mention that I do not believe I have a conflict, but for the record, Madam Attorney, I do want to make you aware of the fact that I have done work in the past for one of the applicants. I am not involved in this matter at all. I do not believe that it rises to the level of a conflict, but I do believe that it's appropriate for me to make that known for the record.
Completely appropriate, Chair. I think if anyone else has a conflict or a different take on that, they could speak it up now, but just because you've worked with them previously does not present a conflict in my assessment. It's a small community that will happen. I'm sure it's happened with others already on your board. As long as you're not involved with this project, I think you would be able to move forward.
And thank you very much. I just wanted to bring that to both the fellow board members' attention as well as anyone else who may be here tonight before we get started. If there's any issue, please feel free to speak up at this time. Hearing none, we'll move forward with the public hearing. Turn it over to staff at this time for your presentation.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. The applicant is requesting to rezone approximately 0.29 acres from B2 Regional Business District to an R5 Residential Moderate High Density District and 0.09 acres from B2 to R15 Residential District. Please note this is a straight rezoning, so there is no concept plan and no conditions can be applied. This site is currently zoned as a mix of B2 and R15. The parcels outlined in blue were rezoned from B2 to R15 in 2012 for single-family residential development. The aerial photography shows the 3 existing residential parcels developed with homes. There is an existing building on 1040 South Seabreeze Road, which was historically used for commercial purposes but is no longer in use. This area is within the VE Coastal High Hazard Area. Existing homes are elevated to meet floodplain requirements, and any new development would need to meet those requirements. As a note, Aqua private water and sewer services are available in this area of Seabreeze. Here's an aerial photo of the site with images of the property from different angles. Here's an example of what you might see of residential development in the Seabreeze area. Here's an example of commercial development near waterfront areas. There are essentially 2 rezoning requests involved in this proposal. Outlined in yellow on this slide are the 2 properties 1040 and 1050 South Seabreeze Road, which are requested to be rezoned from B2 to R5. There are B2 portions remaining on the 3 currently R15 parcels from the 2012 rezoning. The purpose of this was to allow for some buffer room if 1040 and 1050 South Seabreeze Road were ever developed commercially. Rezoning these small portions of B2 to R15 would make these 3 lots zoned wholly R15, thus eliminating the current split zone. Access to the site is along South Seabreeze Road. The existing R15 lots are served by a gravel road, and a new lot would also be served by that gravel road. In the last year, we've had several rezoning requests for developments in the Seabreeze area for both commercial and residential projects. The proposed development would result in a reduction in trips from current zoning. This project is not anticipated to impact schools. Due to the size and shape of these parcels, commercial development would be challenging. While the majority of the parcels in this area remain zoned B2, staff has seen increased interest from the surrounding community to transition away from commercial development in favor of residential. Rezoning the 0.09 acres of B2 on the currently R15 properties would clean up an existing split zone. The 2016 Comprehensive Plan classifies this area as community mixed use. This project is generally consistent with the Comprehensive Plan's recommendations for properties that are located in the community mixed use place type. Staff's recommendation is based on the policy guidance of the 2016 Comprehensive Plan, zoning considerations, and technical review. Staff recommends approval of the proposed rezoning. Staff have received additional public comments which were provided to the board earlier today. Lastly, I'll add that if approved, development would be subject to zoning compliance review in order to ensure full compliance with all ordinance requirements. This concludes staff's presentation. Mr. Tim Lowe is here with County Engineering to answer any questions that may come up under those topics. The applicant is also here and has prepared a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Dickerson. Does anybody have any questions for staff at this time? All right, hearing none. Mr. Dickerson, thank you.
Real quick, those in blue right now are R15, and just those slivers are proposed to be R15?
Yes, so they're mostly R15 except for little slivers that are around the B2 properties. Those were leftover. That was a leftover from the rezoning in order to provide some buffer room in case this was developed.
And those 3 were formerly B2 and were rezoned?
At this time, we'll invite the applicant to come up for their portion of the presentation. I do have, I think, 2 members of the applicant's group that also have asked to speak. As we stated before, you will have some time. I don't have anyone signed up in opposition, but we'll give them an opportunity if anyone does want to be heard in opposition as well. Ms. Wolf.
Thank you very much. My name's Cindy Wolf. I'm here on behalf of all of the listed, how do we get rid of it? That's right. There, I got it. On behalf of all the listed applicants that you mentioned. As the GIS shows it, this is 1040 and 1050 of Seabreeze South Road. As a matter of fact, part of this process, of course, the existing building there has no real redeeming value anymore. It is encroaching into the right-of-way, as a matter of fact, so it is non-conforming as far as any of the setbacks in the existing zoning district that it's in. But our intent is to repurpose this land in what we believe is a much better use. So to make sure that what we were trying to accomplish is conforming, yesterday this record plat was recorded. It is at a 90-degree angle compared to the rest of the maps. Sometimes I don't know why surveyors decide to justify a north arrow in the wrong direction. Anyway, we have 2 now parcels on record that are zone B2 at this moment, but each of them are in excess of 5,000 square feet, which is the minimum lot size for an R5 should this rezoning be successful. So as Zach pointed out, we've got an interesting situation here where the 2 subject parcels are zone B2, but so are some remnants of B2 around these adjacent parcels, and that's why these adjacent property owners all came on board. There was no reason to leave an unusual and awkward split zoning on those residential properties. And I think, Ms. Roadhouse, this explains a little better what's going on and what's becoming the R5, which would then be 2 buildable lots, and then those remnants of each of those 3 adjacent, and that small portion of those that are B2 and would revert back to R15. So each of those residential lots would then be conforming within the R15 district. This is basically how it would flesh out as far as a building envelope with the customary or the required setbacks in R5. We already have 2 lots. We're not creating any more density by this straight rezoning. It would still be 2 lots. It would just have the availability then to develop them as residential. And you can see based upon the houses surrounding it that any one of those houses would fit within those building envelopes. So with that, we believe and we appreciate the staff's recommendation for approval. We believe that both this proposed R5 and also the R15 cleanup is reasonable, consistent, and in the public interest because it is infill development that would be implemented with minimal adverse impacts to the character of the surrounding area. I guess you're certainly aware of some of the past months' rezonings that this particular neighborhood is transitioning a little, and they're pushing for more residential development rather than the type of business development that has occurred on other parcels. And that this action then provides new housing options without increasing density. I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Question for Ms. Wolf. Mr. Moore.
Ms. Wolf, I think this is part of your application here, but it doesn't have a page number, but it's this site here. I'm
Mhm.
assuming the red is B2 and the yellow is R15, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right,
It's the zoning map.
okay, I just want to make sure. So obviously, we have the same situation somebody's got to deal with at some point up here.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Wolf?
Thank you very much.
I do have, as I said, 2 members of the applicant's team, or the applicant group that have signed up to speak as well. Ms. Catherine Tiley.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to see you all again. My name is Catherine Tiley. I live at 1056 South Seabreeze Road. I wonder, can you put this image up, please? That picture from Cindy's presentation. I just wanted to point out that I want to see how you have it. Okay, this house here is mine. I can't point to it, but Tiley. I can touch it. That's my house, Tiley. Kate, who's going to rezone these 2 pieces of property, is here. John and Carol Ford, and Kelly and Wells Struble are here. All of this property was our B2 at one time, and I know the developers had to fight like heck to get them rezoned to residential, but they did, and then the construction of these homes are really the best thing that's happened down at Seabreeze. Everything else down there has been the same for the last 40 years. If not, it's a storage lot. I wanted to say the previous owner of this lot, he did not live in the community, he did not care about the community, and he threatened us often about bringing Taco Bell in or piling shipping containers on the property. So this is a problem. It's a tension that we live. Just changing ownership is like benefited us so much. But it's a tension that we live with at Seabreeze. The B2 allows a lot of uses by right, and personally, I am not interested in living next to any of them. In actuality, most of those uses would not be possible because of the parcel sizes at Seabreeze, and so storage lots become the default use. And we are surrounded by them, with more promising to come. Buy the lot, clear every tree off it, and park stuff on it. I'm not a fan of B2 as my neighbor. The planning and land use leadership do know that, and they have assured, and I can tell by their recommendation for approval here, they've assured us that a review of Seabreeze area will be underway, and we're patiently waiting for that. I have supported B2 to residential rezones and special use permits via public comment. I came in tonight because I felt that you needed to hear and that I might be able to clear up some misunderstanding. Although I have stood here as part of my community opposing residential rezones in the past, those were applications involving much larger parcels where we felt approval would allow densities higher than the logical amount in the flood zone, because that matters too. And even then, I tried to make it clear that we were opposing density and not development. We do not oppose everything. We are not flip-flopping. Every rezone is not the same. This rezone is a winner. Kate Scanlon is an exemplary neighbor. She is trustworthy in her plans and objectives. She cares about the community she lives in, and she has a heart and mind and a will for improving it. We cannot change the B2 zoning on properties. We cannot eliminate B2s. But we can encourage and allow the change to residential when it's requested and when it's possible. This application is possible. It's a good fit. The rezone will immediately benefit its neighbors and ultimately the larger community. I live in a beautiful waterfront area, and I would like to see it grow beautifully. I hope that you recommend this application for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tiley. Next, I have Raymond Struble.
Hi, well, I'm not sure I have much to add because they did a pretty good job. But just for reference, this is my wife and I's residence. So based on this development, one thing that Ms. Tylee just mentioned was the original owner of these parcels here was probably the largest outspoken property owner in the area of the residential conversion of all of this property back when that happened. He no longer is in the area, so it makes total sense now that Ms. Scanlon owns this parcel to, you know, let's go residential with it. One could argue that I'm probably the most impacted by this because to access my house, I drive over, this is actually all Kate's property, but I drive over an easement over Kate's property, then I access through the Tylee's property, and this is how we drive to our house. So, you know, Kate's gonna build something right here, and it's gonna block my view of the water, right? But I still fully support it, and I think this is a great thing for the community, so that's all I wanted to say. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. I do not have anyone else signed up to speak, but if there's anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the application, there is a little over 8.5 minutes remaining. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard in favor of the application at this time? All right. I do not have anyone signed up to speak in opposition. Is there anyone here who would like to be heard in opposition to the application? I do not hear anyone who would like to be heard in opposition to the application. At this time, is there any questions from members of the board? We can open it up for board discussion. I guess
Mr. Chair?
technically we can give a rebuttal period to the applicant if they would like to rebut themselves, but I figured that wasn't the case.
Mr. Chair, if you are ready to entertain a motion, I will make a motion.
I'm okay with the motion unless anyone has anything that they would like to say before we.
No discussion, I'm sorry. I just will say that cleaning up the B2 and Seabreeze is pretty important at some point. It was a mistake to have all that B2 there from the very beginning as it was. But it'll happen incrementally over time, I suppose, but we can't just go do a wholesale rezoning out there without making everybody mad. So we won't do that, but this is a good proposal, it's a good fit, and if you want to make a motion, I'm ready for that.
Ms. Wolf, if you don't mind coming up to the podium. Before we move forward with the motion, would the applicant like to withdraw their application, move for a continuance, or instruct the board to move forward with a vote?
We'd like to move forward, please.
All right, thank you. Mr. Moore, the floor is yours.
All right. So for the community out there, I just want you to know that we're listening. And so I am going to make a favorable recommendation to approve of the proposed rezoning. I find it to be consistent with the purposes and intent of the comprehensive plan because it provides a use in line with the community mixed-use place type. I also find recommended approval of the rezoning request is reasonable and in the public interest because the rezoning would benefit the community by providing more housing options. That is my motion that's consistent with the staff recommendation.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
Okay.
So item number 1 was, I think, the only public hearing that we had on the agenda, but we do have for item number 2, a staff presentation on the UDO Maintenance Amendment Public Comment Draft Release. At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Farrell.
Thank you. So we're here to provide you with an overview of our draft maintenance amendment language. This is just a draft. It will be released to the public tomorrow, and we will be receiving feedback from the public based on that. We'll have some future information to bring you at the December meeting. But just as a reminder, the department does regular amendments since the completion of the UDO project in 2020 to make sure the ordinance stays up to date. Last month, we introduced some concepts and received some direction from the board. And this is the second step, again, where we release the draft comments for the public. Staff has identified 5 maintenance amendments, and I'll summarize all 5 and then provide a more in-depth overview of each one. The first is an update to the accessory dwelling unit standards so they meet state statutes. The second is to adjust the parking ratios for warehouses. The third adds a staff-level administrative approvals for parking lot landscaping modifications. The fourth clarifies how we apply the street yard landscaping standards for commercial uses that do not have minimum parking requirements. And the fifth is intended to clarify the mixed-use residential standards for commercial districts. This is related to some recent projects we've seen come before this board. So for accessory dwelling units, the general statutes say that local governments cannot adopt building standards for homes regulated by the NC residential code. And that applies to both primary and accessory or secondary homes on lots. There's 2 provisions of our ordinance that currently limit size and a building material for ADUs. So this amendment would remove a gross floor area maximum, and it would remove that storage containers are not permitted as materials for a ADU. The next is related to the warehouse parking. The current parking requirement was adopted in 2020, and it was and before that it was based on a case-by-case basis using the number of staff people on a shift. We found that that is a little more arbitrary, and it became a little inconsistent, and also created some enforcement questions where if a shift changes, market changes, ownership changes, there may be a need to readdress parking. So when the UDO project was done, it shifted to a ratio based on the square footage of the building, and that made it more uniform overall and a little easier for folks to follow and understand. So that current requirement is 1.5 parking spaces for every 1,000 square feet of a warehouse. So we went through and we looked at a few surrounding jurisdictions that included our neighbors and some of the jurisdictions with high instances of industrial growth. And you see here the list. And we found that based on a 50,000 square foot example warehouse that may have 50 employees, you can see that New Hanover County is kind of above some of the other neighbors and other jurisdictions. So what we did is we went through and looked at some of the past warehouse projects over the last 4 years and noticed that there's a kind of sliding scale when we do it by an average, where you look at the amount of parking provided, not just required, but provided by the development. You can see that in the 0 to 20,000 range, they generally provided more parking at 1.8 per thousand than what the ordinance requires. But as you get larger, that scale gets lower and lower in the amount of parking that they provide, and that is through the ability to do a engineer's study, a parking study to reduce that parking requirement. So using that information, our current draft is proposing slightly less than what we've even seen used, and it's 1.5 per 1,000, keeping it at that current rate for buildings 0 to 20,000 square feet, and then 1 for 1,000 as you get into 20,000 to a $250,000, and then anything above that is 1 per every 2,000, which is equivalent to about 0.5 per 1,000, just reads a little cleaner. And this kind of gives you an idea using some examples of different warehouse sizes of what our current requirements are and then what would be required under the proposed amendment on that scale. And I want to emphasize, this is a draft numbers that we have put together based on what we've seen in the past 4 years since the ordinance was changed. We are very open to accepting all your input if there are proposed changes to these numbers. So the third amendment is related to parking lot landscaping.
Robert, can I stop you?
Oh, pardon, yes, sir.
Pete, what's the square footage on your warehouses out there in 421?
160,000 square feet on the first two and about 100 on the third.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
So currently, the landscaping section of the UDO allows staff the administrative flexibility to accept some changes to street yard landscaping requirements, but does not have the same flexibility for parking lot landscaping. This amendment takes some of that language that we use in other parts of the ordinance and applies it to our ability to have some administrative flexibility for parking lots as well. Fourth amendment is related to street yard requirements. Currently, street yard landscaping is required for changes of use whenever additional off-street parking is required. We found that there are 4 land uses that do not have any minimum parking standards because by the nature of 3 of them, there wouldn't be a need for employee or customer parking. They are essentially parking areas. Bus and taxi terminals, commercial parking lots, recreational vehicle and boat trailer storage lots. We also have a kind of catch-all use in the ordinance called other intensive industrial uses that is listed with no minimum parking requirement. So because of that, these uses would not be required to provide street yard currently. With the amendment shown in red here, we're adding that new or expanding commercial land uses that require new vehicle parking or storage areas would also be required to provide street yard to catch those uses that we listed earlier that currently it would not apply to. So the next amendment is related to help clarifying the meaning of mixed use and how residential development is allowed in commercial zoning districts. Currently, the table of uses says that all dwelling unit types are allowed in the B1 and B2 districts with a special use permit. And then we're also taking the existing language that was under the multifamily section and moving it under the mixed use dwelling section so that when you look up what happens with a mixed use dwelling, you go directly to those regulations instead of going to multifamily for any land use or residential land use. So with that.
Can you go back to the table?
Yes.
One, I think 2 more. Yeah, that's fine. So, and this may be classified or clarified in your definition. Do you have to have a mixture of uses to be inside that use category? In other words, do you have to have single family?
So the mixed use dwelling.
So if I'm at if I'm at a PD and I have dwelling mixed use, how do you define that in your 2 definitions?
So we're using this mixed use development.
So I do have to have I have to have a mix of residential and non-residential to be mixed use.
Correct, yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right.
But at this point, if there's any questions from the board about any of this, or
You go back to the table, Robert.
yes, sir.
Special use permits that are being deleted from B1 and B2 are all the uses listed on the left side there. So based on what you're proposing here, at some point in the future, if I'm going to do a triplex dwelling in a B1 or B2, I couldn't do it, period. Unless it was in a mixed use development.
Well, that's currently how the ordinance is intended. Currently, the ordinance, if you look at, let's say, a triplex, and you want it in the B2 district with a special use permit, you need to follow the use standards for that in 432. And that is what takes you to, let me get to the, that's what takes you to our current ordinance language, which is this. It refers you to the multifamily section, and then it says multifamily dwellings in the B1 and B2 districts shall comply with the following standards, and then it says must be part of a mixed-use development. And that kind of layering is where we've run into some issues.
Pete, it has caused some heartburn out there with us. Staff's done a pretty good job of navigating through it, but it has created some challenges. I'm not saying what they've proposed, I need to digest it more, is the perfect plan, but what we currently have, that number B1 has created some difficulty.
I don't typically have a problem with that particular proposal, but I just need to look at it some more.
That is that is the purpose here. We'll be sending this out to you tomorrow, and you'll have the opportunity to review it and send me all the comments you have, and we will certainly take those into consideration for the next draft.
Robert, can you go back to the table one more time, please? Just a quick question. The O&I, we've got permitted uses all the way down, and we've added in with the dwelling mixed use to special use permit. I think everything else stays pretty consistent except for that change. We're making special use in O&I. Is there a reason for that?
Yes. So this is what the proposal. Let me go back to what is currently there. So right now, we do not have any special use permit in the O&I. It's a good question. Why is that there? We'll certainly take a look at that.
Okay, sounds good.
Robert, I have a question on the parking ratio for the warehouses. Are you guys going to provide backup to all those stats that you showed for public comment?
Yes.
Is that going to be available? Okay.
We can certainly provide some of this information, yes, ma'am.
Robert, last question, I promise. How many requests do y'all get in a B1 or B2, and I would imagine more B1 for maybe a single-family residential structure?
I don't know that we, to my history here, we haven't.
Just a single?
Yeah, just a single. I've got a B1 property. I just want to go in and do a house. I don't really feel like going through the process of rezone it to a residential. I mean, obviously I could do a special use permit as it sits now, but I mean.
Arguably, according to staff's interpretation, you are not able to get a special use permit for a home in a resident or in a commercial district unless it was part of a mixed use development.
Okay.
We have had that called into question, and there have been different interpretations since we restructured the original language that was in our zoning ordinance for a couple of decades before the UDO project. So there has never been a point in time where staff has allowed residential as a just residential project in a commercial district.
Okay.
As written currently, though, somebody came in and asked for a special use permit in B2 for a dual unit attached dwelling. They technically could do that.
They could
irrespective of what staff thinks about the intent of the ordinance or what it should say.
Correct. They could apply for that now, irrespective of the fact that staff's interpretation and the way the ordinance was written prior to 2019 said that you could not do that.
Does staff have any feelings, yay or nay, on looking at, I mean, we sit here and talk about affordability and putting more units on the ground. Is there any conversations internally with staff about looking at maybe single-family detached, to allow that in a B1 as far as permitted by right?
That is not a policy question we've researched. I will say there is limited commercial zoning on the ground that is not currently used for a commercial project. So I don't know if the applicability would be wide enough to
Okay.
have it make a big difference.
It probably wouldn't meet the setbacks either and stuff like that, so. I just ask. Go.
Mr. Farrell, anything further on the?
No, just that we will be releasing this to the public tomorrow, and like I said, if you have any questions, comments, concerns.
I have one more, Robert.
Yes, sir.
On the off-street parking for warehouses, can we not call it just warehouses? Can't we just call that industrial uses? You're talking about employees, ratios, and they do it differently all over the state. I did my own research on that. I got a whole pile of stuff on it, but it's a good thing that we're looking at that, because if we want to protect the environment, for example, we want to limit impervious coverage as much as we can, because storm ain't always going to be the panacea for a storm. So the less impervious coverage you have, and I can show you a couple of projects in Wilmington right now that have so much parking. It's ludicrous. I don't even understand why they have it. And there are a lot of parking lots in this city, in some of the county, that could be torn up and reduce the parking area and put something else there that's more useful than, or not anything, just leave it as open space, or something like that. But it's important that we reduce parking to the need of the use, period.
And we understand that mainly, especially considering that the similarities of the parking ratios between the use of warehouse and other industrial uses are almost identical.
They are.
But, you know, when we look at a maintenance amendment, we're biting off what we can chew in terms of updating the ordinance to address.
I understand.
Yeah. But if it is a policy issue that we need to bring forward, we can.
Pete, if I remember our last discussion, though, you wanted to look at tiering these, and I think staff has done that. What maybe would be worth looking at, if there is an opportunity, I know obviously you can do parking studies, and if an applicant is going to do a parking study, there could be just some discretionary items put in the ordinance to where staff could then further reduce the parking based on that study, to go even a little further, based on the use and based on the need.
Well, parking studies are helpful, but I find them to be a big waste of time. If I'm building a building, I know what the building is going to be occupied by, how many people are going to be there.
Okay. Well, what I'm trying to do is get to help you to where if there's 322 spaces, but you say you only need 100, if there's an opportunity for staff to reduce it to maybe not 100, but maybe to 200.
But isn't that your concern, that like uses will change or property owners will change, and then?
The ability to uniformly apply the ordinance, you know, instead of kind of on a case by case, or even as trends or markets or need shift for individual users of a property, that does kind of create that enforcement and compliance question. That's why we went to the ratio to begin with. But you know, the parking study is certainly a tool that we have seen used, and that's where we've gotten some of those lower parking ratios that you saw for the larger scale development.
I don't own warehouses, I don't know.
Could you take us back to that, the initial parking ratio thing for warehousing? And while you're getting there, I'll tell you what I'm thinking about. Most of the flex space projects that have been done around the county for probably the last decade or more, the ones that are, say, 20, 30,000 feet or under, end up being subdivided into 5,000, 10,000, 2,500 square foot units. And the buildings are built, the the shell space is constructed, and then on an as-needed basis, we figure out what people are gonna use it for. Some people use it for 10% office build-out. Their next-door neighbor may do it for 25%. In some instances, it goes 50 or 60%. So I think that maintaining a code description based on warehouse versus flex space or manufacturing is probably a good idea, with your manufacturing and your flex space potentially eating up a lot more parking, and we might be avoiding some long-term problems that we face. I'm glad to see that it does have a higher percentage with the proposed amendment for, say, 0 to 20,000. And then when you get to $250,000 and up, regardless of whether it's manufacturing or warehouse, you're just not going to need nearly as much. I'd agree. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the proposed maintenance amendment? Public comment? Thank you, Mr. Farrell.
Thank you.
Item number 3 on the agenda is the adoption of the 2025 Planning Board meeting calendar. Everyone should have gotten a proposed calendar in their packet. Ms. Roth, anything to add about the calendar that we all have received in our packet?
The only thing I'll mention is we've had some conversation in the past about the July date. Every year we double check to make sure that we have adequate time to meet all the legal requirements between the application deadline and the proposed date. And then there's enough time after your planning board meeting to meet all of the required deadlines for the August Board of Commissioners meeting. And the proposed date will meet all of those requirements. But we have run into situations where, because of summer plans, we are not always sure if everyone on the board can attend or if there might be a quorum issue. So for clarity's purposes, sometimes it's better if there's a question about if folks can actually attend that July meeting. We may not want to set people up with an expectation that, hey, I can apply in June and then be considered in July. So just wanted to make sure y'all double checked that date to make sure that y'all would be available and we would have a quorum.
Yeah, I mean, from experience, I think that anytime that it's during the week of the 4th, we've had difficulty, even when it's been a day or two after the holiday. I think that pushing it to the 2nd week should give us an opportunity to be here. I don't want to speak for everyone else, but I think that should be sufficient. All right, I do believe we need a motion and a
I'll
second.
make a motion that we approve the calendar as presented by staff.
Motion's been made.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Calendar is adopted. Ms. Roth, any other staff updates or items for us to discuss?
The only other thing I wanted to mention, since it didn't come out earlier, the public release for that UDO maintenance amendment, we're planning on putting that on the website tomorrow, and we'll be collecting public comments through Wednesday the 20th, so that we can make revisions if necessary ahead of your December meeting and consideration.
Okay. Anybody have anything else to discuss this evening?
I don't have anything else to say other than I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.